Pokemon cards, the essence of the late 90s. You had them, your friends had them, your cousins had them, hell, even your mom had them.
Yeah, I've been trading Pokemon cards for a long time, and I almost have all of them. Yeah.
Okay.
They were so wildly successful that they're still making them to this day. The card game had an earlier start in Japan and came to the United States in 1999, riding off of the success of the popular Game Boy games. With the success of Pokemon Go in 2016, a lot of people are going back to their childhood collections, digging them out and wondering, do I really have something of value here? Spoiler alert, no you don't. Well, probably not. It just astounds me how many of these stupid clickbait posts that I see all the time in my news feed, on social media, on even videos on YouTube, of people telling people that their cards that they have in their drawers are worth hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. These are the same people that'll tell you that all the other 90s fads are now worth the same amount just to get you to click and watch their ads and this and that. Listen up, because I'm going to lay it out nice and simple. So what makes a card worth something? Well, first off, one of the most important things when it comes to any sort of collectible is condition, especially with trading cards. So unless your card is one of maybe say a dozen in the world, if your card looks like ass, it's not going to be worth much of anything at all, especially to a collector. You have to keep in mind that these were designed to be collectibles. They printed off thousands, if not millions, of some of these cards. So if your card's in bad shape, somebody could just easily go out and find another one, and it just completely kills any sort of worth that it has. Now I know what most of you are probably thinking, oh, my cards are in perfect condition. I kept them in a binder and the sleeves. Well, let's back up a second here. How old were you when you collected? You probably, like me, had them in 3rd, maybe 4th, 5th, 6th grade or something like that. So at the time, you weren't thinking about taking the best care of these. You were passing them around at recess, pulling them out of your binder or sleeves to show your friends, swapping them back and forth, and touching them with your Cheeto fingers. Worn corners, dog ear, minor creases, all of these things affect the value of the card and can take a card that might have some value and bring it to almost nothing. And this is actually where the card grading scale comes in, where you might think you have a card that to you might look like a 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10, but actually graded it might be more like a 6 or a 7, depending on little minor things like surface wear on the holographics, if there's any sort of holofoil coming through in any other part of the card other than where it's supposed to. Even just surface scratches on the holographic part can ruin the value and bring down the score. So again, unless you were above the age of maybe 20, you probably weren't taking good care of your cards. You probably weren't keeping them in the hard, unbendable sleeves. You probably weren't putting them straight from pack into protection, and they probably picked up some scuffs and bruises over the years. Well, maybe you did take good care of your cards. Maybe you did take them right out of the pack, put them into the binder or the sleeves, and left them there and didn't pull them out and damage them. But since then, where have they been? If they've been sitting in your basement or your parents' attic for the past 15 years or so, there's a good chance they've been exposed to humidity and the elements, and a lot of them could be curved or wrinkled from moisture. And of course, that's going to severely hurt the value. So if your card's looking like a Pringles chip, that's not a good thing. Furthermore, grading takes a lot of other things into consideration. You could take a card straight from the pack, and it's not guaranteed to be a 10. It really depends on how well it was printed. If it was printed off center, if the borders aren't correct, if the coloring isn't absolutely on point, it's going to affect the grading score. Graded cards actually do fetch higher prices, but it's an exponential scale. The higher the graded score, the more valuable the card is. It's not a cheap process to get a card graded, though. Not only do you have to send it in and hope that your card is in good enough condition where it's worth being graded, you also have to pay a percentage of whatever that card's graded value is to have it done. So the more expensive the card, the more you're going to pay. And in the end, a lot of common cards that are maybe worth 10, 15 bucks that might be worth 40 or 50 graded, after paying those fees, it just doesn't end up being worth it at the end of the day. So now that we've covered condition, the next biggest factor in influencing what a card is actually worth is what the card is. There's really only a few specific cards that you've probably heard or seen that are actually worth something. 99% of cards are just about worthless. The ones that everybody knows about are the big three, the trifecta: Blastoise, Venusaur, and of course Charizard, where the standard versions of each of these from the base set is worth 30 to 40 US dollars for Charizard, 15 to 20 for Blastoise, and about 10 to 15 for Venusaur. All the other holos are generally only worth $1 to $2, and everything else just a matter of cents. As I'm saying this, I'm sure some of you out there are saying, "Oh, I've seen some of these cards sell for hundreds." Well, no, you haven't. And the cards you may have seen may have been priced at those prices, but did they actually sell? I highly doubt it. There's a big difference between a price that's being asked and a price of what something's worth. I can make a listing right now and ask $1 million for my card. Does it make it worth that much? Absolutely not. No, it doesn't. Now, some of you are probably like, hold on, wait up. What about first edition cards and shadowless cards? Okay, yeah, some of those can be worth more, which I'm going to get into now. But first, I need to backtrack a bit and explain one of the biggest misconceptions about the original cards, which is the difference between first edition, first generation, and first print, because there seems to be a widespread misconception about what this difference actually is. So, to begin, the first generation, that is the original 150 or 151, if you want to include Mew, which I personally would. It's the original set of Pokemon that came out and started everything off. And then eventually they came along with Gen 2, which added another 100 or so. And at this point we're up to, I don't know, Gen 8 or something like that. I've stopped following. The first gen monsters are still included in sets that they're printing today. So they're not the original cards. They're just the original characters that are still being reused in new ways. So first edition cards are a premium set geared towards collectors, and they had an additional cost to them. They were more expensive per pack, and that translated into a higher value for the cards. These cards can easily be picked out of a lot by looking at the left side of the card, where a circle with the number 1 will appear, and wrapped around that number 1 will be the text edition, designating first edition. There's also second edition cards, which I'm not going to get into in this video, but they don't hold the same status as first edition cards, which are the cream of the crop. First edition cards, as I said, fetch a little bit more for the general cards, like the commons and the uncommon cards. You're not going to see much of a difference, maybe a jump of, from a few cents to maybe a quarter a card or so, depending on condition, of course. But for the holographics, it can make a little bit more of a difference. You can have a holographic that's worth $2 or $3, and the first edition version will be worth maybe 10, 15, or 20. Now, there's too many to go into detail about which ones are worth more, but the same set of rules as the regular cards applies. There's only a few of them that are going to be worth more than the others, particularly the trifecta, again, Venusaur, Charizard, and Blastoise. So now moving on to the first print. Now this is the set that a lot of people that don't collect aren't even aware exists. They look at them and they don't even differentiate between a later print and this original batch. So a lot of people that have these probably don't know. So yes, you might actually be pleasantly surprised that you have something of value in your collection. But at the same time, again, since these were the very first test print, they're much harder to come by. So these cards are referred to as shadowless cards because when they first started printing them, they were more bland. They didn't have the shadowing that they added later on to make the cards more appealing. The text at the top displaying the HP was a different font. It wasn't bold. And the card in general just had a different look to it overall. Even the holographic portion of it on the holos is a little bit different. The character pops out a little bit more. The holographic isn't as blurred down, I think. And these cards, again, it's the big three, Charizard, Venusaur, and Blastoise, that are more desirable from this set. But it doesn't really push up the prices too much. Prices from this set generally reflect those of first editions. Again, your holos that are worth 2 to 3 are probably going to be worth 10 to 20. And your common cards that might be worth a few cents can be bumped up to 25 cents, 50 cents, maybe even $1. Another feature of these cards that if you're having a hard time telling the difference, especially on the trainers and the energies where the shadowing effect isn't really present, is to look at the bottom of the card where on a true shadowless card where the dates are listed, you'll have comma 99 instead of it leaving off at 98, and this was changed for copyright reasons or something that are beyond me. I'm not exactly sure what the story behind that is. So again, nothing I'd say spectacular for pricing. I mean, yeah, I'd be happy if I found a shadowless holographic, but it's not going to let you retire. You're not going to make a bunch of money off of it, especially if it's not in good condition. But it's worth mentioning that there was a first edition release of the shadowless set. Now this set is pretty much the holy grail of Pokemon card collecting. Now I've been collecting pretty seriously for about 5 or 6 years now, and in that time it was only this past year that I've seen any cards from this set in person. And it was a lot of about 50 or 60 common and uncommon cards, not a single rare, not a single holographic. So that just goes to show how highly unlikely it is you're going to find one of these cards in your collection. The odds are if you have one of these cards, you know what they are. Now from this set, the holos can fetch a pretty good amount of money, especially if you have a few of them in good condition. You could take a card that's, for example, Mewtwo, that's worth about $4 to $8 from the regular version, 8 to 12 for a shadowless version, and when it's shadowless and first edition, it's going to be worth between 60 and 120 for just the one card. Now, the ultimate holy grail of all Pokemon card collecting would be the Charizard from this set, which in good shape can fetch anywhere from $300 to $600 and graded even more. Now, I should advise some caution when dealing with shadowless cards because this is the set that is most highly counterfeited. All the counterfeit cards I've ever seen from the original base set are always shadowless copies. And I even had a few as a kid, and I knew they were fake as a kid, but I thought they were really cool, so I held on to them, thinking that they were possibly misprints, but later on I came to understand that they were counterfeits through a little bit of research. One of the most obvious ways to determine if it's a counterfeit is to take the card, put it on the table, and flip it over horizontally from right to left. And if the Pokeball on the back side is upside down when you do this, you have a fake card. Another way to tell is if you could actually find a real card and compare that to the fake card, you're going to see that the fake card might have different fonts, the card overall might be out of focus, the corners might be square instead of rounded, or maybe the borders are a little bit bigger, the card is noticeably taller. Another way to check is to look at the seam of the card from the side, and a authentic card is going to have 3 layers. It's going to be yellow, black, then yellow. It's very hard to see this, maybe use a magnifying glass, but basically just look for a black line going down the side of the card. And if you see that, you've got a real card on your hands. If not, try to see if like the material the card is made out of is kind of soft or a little too flexible. Fake cards are usually made on inferior paper. Another reason why this set is the most counterfeited is because of the simplicity of the cards. Without the shadowing, it's a lot easier to make counterfeits, which is why these cards were targeted. Now, this one time, I bought cards off of some girl that I met, and she was convinced that she had authentic cards, and at this point I didn't really know better until I got home and did some research. So I talked to her about the cards. She had a Charizard, which was shadowless, which I was really excited to get, and she told me the story about pulling it out of a pack, and I believed it. So when I got home, I pulled it out and I noticed that the card seemed a little bit off. It was a little bit bigger. The corners were a little bit more boxy. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this girl was out to rob me or that she tricked me. She probably did pull it out of a pack, and that's the scary thing, is that these counterfeit companies went to the extent so far that they would take authentic packs in some cases and take the cards out, put in the fake cards, and reseal it and sell them like that. I've seen it before in other situations. I've bought in fake packs of cards myself. So take the time to go out and do a little bit of research for yourself and try to determine if what you have is legitimate. So that pretty much concludes what I'm going to cover in this video. Basically, it depends on what the condition of the card is, and it depends on what the card actually is, which I think seems pretty straightforward. Obviously, I'm not able to cover everything in this video. There might be some slight exceptions to what I discussed, but I think I generally covered it. And again, this video is only targeted at the original base set and its 2 expansions, the Jungle and Fossil set. If you like the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you want to see if you want to see more of this. I'm thinking about doing a few more of these to cover some of the stuff I didn't get to in this video, such as promos, foreign cards, and even some of the newer sets. So I will hopefully have some of those in the near future. Thanks for watching.
Are you ready to be the ultimate Pokemon Master Trainer?
Yes, I think I am.
Then join the Pokemon Trading Card Game League. You'll do awesome activities, learn wicked strategies, earn killer badges, and meet new friends as you begin your journey to become a Pokemon Master Trainer. To find out more about the Pokemon Trading Card Game League, log on to wizards.com. Go forth and be a master.